Hello and welcome to Chapter 124 of the DC Alliance podcast. With me, as always, is Clay. Clay, how you doing this evening?
Doing pretty good. I taking a little bit of an easy day, a lot of reading today. A little bit of we kind of hinted at it in the sense of me and Katie. Um but we just got done doing a book review off air. That's going to come at a later date, but we did get accepted to read a book early as far as like in continuity Star Wars stuff.
Ooh, that's awesome.
So I just got started on that. I think now Katie is about a quarter of the way in on her book. So getting some chapters in on that is really, really fun. I kind of posted about it on Twitter today. So if anybody wants to go back and see what I tweeted, you can kind of tell what I'm reading. But doing a lot of that, reading a lot of comics today, and just relaxing, kind of an easy Monday. And it's very appropriate due to what we're going to be talking about later. But I can smell Abby making spaghetti right now. So
And we had a big discussion, listeners, before we started the show about spaghetti and what I had in my spaghetti. So, yeah, I'll just hold it there. Just leave a little bit of mystery, leave a little bit of mystery out of that. Clay, but we have something to talk about. Batgirl has kind of officially moved to 2023 and going theatrical, but there's quite a comment from the or quote from the director. So we'll get into that too. And we have a little bit more. Plus, like Clay teased, we have a Smallville pilot review because we are starting to review the Smallville show. And boy, do I have some thoughts on some of the scenes that I watched. And some of the scenes I really enjoyed as well. So we'll get into all that. But before we do all that, obviously, we have to do the network plugs. We are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance with 8 shows in total. On Mondays is Slice of Film with Katie and rotating guest hosts of Sarah and Mark. That's where they look at old films, new films, and everything in between. That rotates bi-weekly with Ranger Alliance with Clay and rotating guest hosts of Jake and Joe. That's where they look at anything and everything Power Rangers. On Tuesdays is this show, DC Alliance, with myself and Clay. On Wednesdays is Superhero Discussions. On Thursdays is Star Wars Alliance with Katie and Clay. They get you covered on anything and everything Star Wars. On Fridays is Marvel Alliance with Chris and Brent. They get you covered on everything that's Marvel. On Saturdays, bi-weekly, is a walk through the multiverse with Joe. That's where Joe takes a look at everything that isn't DC, Star Wars, and Marvel. I was wondering, Clay, I was talking to Joe, and I was wondering with him, like, ask him, like, what are you going to cover now? Like, now that the boys are up, I figured he didn't have much. I think he might have riddled off at least 12 to 15 different things that are ongoing right now. And I was just like, how are you going? There's no way you can do episode by episodes of some of these things. You're going to have to do season recaps. It's impossible. He has so many things. I don't know. I thought first when he presented the show, I thought, like, what are you going to cover, man? And now I realized, my God, he had such a wide net of stuff. I'm pretty sure he's going to talk about Westworld. He talked
yeah,
about Stranger
I mean
Things.
that's why it's called a walk through the multiverse. He can really do anything. Now I love that when we a little behind the scenes here, guys. Joe came to me with the show and was like, hey, I'm thinking about pitching this. What should I do? How should it look and everything? When he pitched this show, I thought he was going to stick with like just the genres of comic books and how it relates to new shows that are coming out and everything else. But I mean, it's legit the multiverse, so he can branch out to anything that he wants, which is why when a new show comes up, we always get together in our GUA chat and we're like, okay, who's going to cover this? Is it going to be uh Heinz for the fact that it's animated? Okay, no. Okay, well then the next one up would be Joe, and then he would see if he would talk about it or not. We have a pretty good thing going, a symbiotic thing going on
Myself
with
and
all of our
Joe had
shows.
quite a good laugh about that, actually, Clay, because before I walked through the multiverse started, I covered Rick and Morty. So when he started the show, I was like, "Oh, this is kind of awkward." The guy literally walks through the multiverse. That's literally the basics of the show, uh, and takes somebody with him. So I'm like, "Yeah," but Joe's like, "Yeah, I'll just cover Invincible. That's fine." So it works out well because I love Rick and Morty, and that's something you really need to get on in your going through. That would be a fun recap as well. It's fantastic show. So on Sundays monthly is World's Finest True Believers with Chris Balga. That's where Chris and a guest take a look at a comic of a guest's choice. Both myself and Clay have been on there, and numerous others talking about various comics from DC, Marvel, and there's indies as well. So check that out for all your comic needs. DC Alliance goes live on the Geekverse YouTube channel normally at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. This was a Travis need it, so thanks Clay for that. On Wednesdays, Star Wars Alliance goes live at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and Thursdays, Marvel Alliance goes live at 9:10 p.m. Eastern Time. All three of those shows also have their own podcast feeds. Search Marvel Alliance, DC Alliance, or Star Wars Alliance if you just want Marvel content, DC content, or Star Wars content. But if you want all 8 shows, stay subscribed to the Geek Ultimate Alliance on your podcast app of choice. We also have a Patreon, 2 tiers, a $1 tier and a $5 tier. The $1 tier is basically a tip jar, like what we're doing, and you want to help us out any way you can. And the $5 tier is where you get your extras. You get your ad-free episodes, early access to episodes, and Patreon exclusive episodes. Clay is going through Game of Thrones, and I chuckled thinking about, especially when he mentioned after the second episode, like, "God damn, like, how do you end like that?" And I'm just like, "Oh, buddy, you keep that up, you keep that enthusiasm when you finish an
I
episode."
I nobody, please, of course, no
No,
spoilers.
no spoilers.
But I think I opened up my third episode with just basically saying that Joffrey and Cersei needed to die.
Oh
Um,
yeah, oh yeah.
um,
I remember
and
that
again,
feeling.
I know the fates of these two characters because I mean, I am well aware of being on the internet during these
There's
shows.
memes going around of
Exactly,
the
exactly.
fates of most of the characters. Maybe
So
some will
I
surprise you, but
I know a lot of them though. Uh, but I think watching it the way I am gets me still very engaged with the show. My third episode is up on Patreon right now. If you guys want to go check it out, fourth episode will be up probably this weekend, ready for Monday because that's usually when I drop them. But uh, I was just talking to a friend of mine, and he was like, "Dude, you're gonna be going a little crazy in October with the baby." So I'm thinking I will still drop them weekly, but I think I'm going to take an entire week out of the month of September and binge 2 seasons, and so that way for the next, I guess, 20 weeks after October, I can just push them out weekly without having to worry too much about recording during that month.
you can just do watch the episode, jump on, do recording, jump off, watch the episode, do that. Like you give your quick thoughts, it would work out really well because you'd be right fresh out of an episode. And a lot of the times, I bet you could hear in the recordings how eager you would be to go back to the episode, to the next episode.
Yeah,
For
probably.
sure, because it's great. Also, we have the guys over at Marvel Alliance doing their MCU rewatch. They can watch this all day. They may be recording something, maybe right now as we speak. I know it's on the docket. They teased it. They teased it on the Twitterverse that it was
I
coming.
did I did see it. So
Yes.
I think they might be recording either sometime today or tomorrow.
Yes, so look for that, patrons, when it comes out. I, myself, and Joe have got together to go through the DC films through the years, and we already gave you our Batman 66 review, and now we're going to do the Wonder Woman pilots for 73 and 74, and compare and contrast what we got and what we didn't, and what worked from the first one that we didn't get, and just overall discussion and comparison of the two. So it's going to be a fun discussion. I'm excited about that. Also have my top 5, Joe's Multiverse Minutes. Katie's over there looking at Star Wars comics with her husband. and Snell and Clay have to get together to do the final issue of the Batman '89 comic. That's all the Patreon stuff we have. We thank anyone that helps us out there and a supporter. But if you can't do that, if you could take a quick 30 seconds to rate and review the podcast on your podcast app of choice, that would be greatly appreciated. Clay, I think that's everything.
I think so. So the
Nailed
first
it.
thing that we will jump into is not really news, but we have nothing else to talk about apparently. So
My God, the Kevin Hart is starting to infect Dwayne Johnson for you. Like you're like, I'll show you, listeners. Well, the live people. We have a uh, cover for Denim Geek that Black Adam is going to be on. Uh, Basically says Black Adam, Dwayne Johnson is the new anti-hero in town, and the DC movie universe will never be the same. And has a bonus meet the Justice Society of America. So I'm excited to check that out. And basically, like we're gearing up for this weekend. We're going to get clips of both Black Adam and Shazam 2, and I'm hoping we get a showdown between them.
now I guess I mean I'm sure Heinz will be listening to this later and as well as everybody else in the GUA. I highly doubt there will be anything big enough for me to or us to actually be jumping live on the Geekverse and Marvel Alliance feed. Probably.
Unless Henry Cavill shows up. Like if Henry Cavill
Oh,
showed
I
up,
think
then we would jump on to talk maybe. But
I'm sure
don't
Henry
see that.
will
I
jump
don't see that.
on,
I don't see
but
that happening.
he'll jump onto another stage, just not DC stage.
No, I'm just saying. Like if that would be something that would constitute. Okay, let's bring because Superman joining, and we got a definite thing about Superman then. So
I'm still holding it out there. I still want it, and I still want it to happen. It's probably not going to happen, but I'm calling it now. Doctor Doom, Henry Cavill.
I wouldn't be against that. I also wouldn't. I think there's other roles out there for him, and I'm sucker for still wanting him to be Superman because I just think it's absolute travesty that we didn't get him. I'm excited for Shazam too, Clay. So this kind of ties in with Shazam and building hype for both of those. I think that there's no coincidence that they're back, like they're together in the time.
I think it was the link that you shared to the GUA that showed the panel times, and it just reminded me of this brand new suit that Zachary Levi is getting for Shazam.
Yes.
It looks so good.
Oh my
Like
God, I'm so
it's been a while
excited.
since I actually looked at it and any of the behind the scenes stuff. So I'm excited to see a. There's probably gonna be a full length trailer for uh Fury of the Gods. So I'm excited for that. Anything else? We will have to wait and see.
Who knows? You may get if we you might see something from Black Adam that might excite you for the film as well. Like we don't know that. S-Pub says, I think I'd want to see his face if he's in the MCU, but I think he'd be a great Doctor Doom. I think he'd be great at anything, but S-Pubs, I don't think they're going to hide the moneymaker.
Hey, in spoilers for Mission Impossible, they destroyed his face. They're gonna do the exact same thing to Doctor Doom, so you can
you,
still see his
you'll get
face,
handsome face. At the
however
very end.
messed up it may be.
Just
But
don't
then,
CGI any mustaches on him. I think everyone will be okay.
yeah, that's true.
But while we won't be live talking about the Black Adam and Shazam panels, we will definitely be discussing them next week and any and all nuggets that come from them. So don't worry about that. And it's kind of nice, Clay. This comes out on a Saturday and is only
We
Sunday,
actually
and then we're
have like time for to actually talk about it rather than just like let it slip by and almost forget about it by the time it's our time to go live on YouTube. Yeah.
yeah.
Like
Woo!
everything that we get.
That Joker 2 stuff, that was a fun time.
Yeah.
I'll keep
It
dining in on that. I'll keep dining in on that.
one time. I mean, when was the last time that legitimately happened though?
Just Joker 2.
No, past that. Like
I
before
don't have
that.
an answer for you. I don't have an answer. As
Espo
Bob
says he
says.
has a mustache and then it gets burned off by the cosmic rays. I would love it. I would love it.
That would be awesome. So Clay, moving on. Obviously, this is something you're excited about. Blue Beetle has finished filming. Uh,
Yes.
we have an Instagram post from the main actor sharing the video of several cast members and crew basically out celebrating, and it looked like quite an event.
Yeah, we first got an initial post from, I believe it was the director over on Instagram, basically saying it's a wrap, it's finished filming. I'm very excited about this. Now, as far as where we can see this, if they're really wanting to put money into it to make it a full theatrical blockbuster, and if there's any indication on how VFX artists have been working their asses off, regardless of what you think about the Marvel shows, um, I don't think we see this movie until late 2023 or beginning of 2024.
I think that depends on the VFX. I don't think much of the greater DCEU affects this film. I think this is like this could stand if we didn't like if you told me tomorrow the DCEU was snapped away, I think this could stand on its own. I don't think there's gonna be much in the way of Easter eggs or anything for this film. I mean, you some Easter eggs, but you know what I mean connection to the greater
Well,
DCEU. I think this could
I
stand
I
on
th-
its own.
I think it'll stand on its own because I think it needs to stand on its own. But I still think, almost in the way of Shazam, where you had references to the greater DCEU,
Yeah.
like the newspapers, the broadcast, something over the
The
radio.
toys.
Exactly. There will be slight
Freddy.
hints at the fact that, exactly, Freddy wearing every single
Freddie
freaking
was basically the
superhero
encyclopedia of the
shirt.
DCEU, saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, look, connected. Oh, this person he powers and stuff like
But I,
that."
I think that we will get small hints, and who knows? Because again, talking more into the stuff with Batgirl in the quotes with that, um, it is very clear that this quote unquote new DCEU is going to take reference to the successors of superhero franchises, MCU, and you will have to watch what comes before it. I think this will be the same way. I think that they will show subtle things that will not make sense unless you watch other movies. But I think that this will story-wise play on its own. As far as events, characters, cameos, that stuff you will need to see majority of what is coming before it. That being Flash and what I assume, of course, would be Batgirl.
I think this could. I don't think this matters in terms of where it is for people watching it. I just think that you'd want to put it after the Flash, just in case there's some like world-changing events to say like this takes
I
place. I don't see anything like in the Flash affecting this film or anything like that. It's not as dependent on the greater DCU like Batgirl is because it has Keaton and it has to come after the
but
Flash. I think this could. That's my just personal opinion. I think that this is made to stand on its own. It's not like it doesn't have that linchpin that Batgirl has with Keaton being in it.
I yes, as far as Keaton being in, as far as a character from each of those movies sharing that one character, yes, I totally agree with what you were thinking. But with the way WB is wanting their movies to be, I think you will need to watch both of those movies before you watch Blue Beetle.
Oh yeah, like, I wouldn't rule out seeing somebody from Peacemaker show up in Blue Beetle. Like I wouldn't rule that out, like because of what exactly you said about them wanting to connect. And we already got rumors that in Black Adam she's going to show up. I can't remember her name. Harcourt.
Did you just
She's
say haircut?
hardcut. I thought first, and then I said hardcore. It's been a while, dude. We watched so many different things. Like I'm watching like 2 and 3 episodes of Spectacular Spider-Man at a time to finish it. So knowledge almost in there at times. Uh, yeah. So I really am excited for this, Clay. Like I joked with you that Blue Beetle's filmed, and as Bob says, Blue Beetle sees a news report of Batman and says, "Wow, that is Michael Keaton's Batman." As he appeared in DC's Flash 2023.
I think more so they're gonna see the picture of Ezra and be like, "Oh shit!" and then run
different
away.
timeline. But no, like I said, I think this could be made to go before or after Flash. I don't think that. But if you have things like world-changing events happen in the Flash, obviously you would like this movie to go after that to just ensure that people wouldn't question if Blue Beetle is canon or not. So that's kind of why I would put it after and expect it to come after the Flash, regardless. But they have a why is that not Clay? They have a year. When does Flash come out? July or
July.
July. So they basically have a year to get to. They have a year to work on it to get to the Flash. So I think you know, year and a half, end of 2023. We're at best bet maybe something towards Christmas.
Well, and that's what I mean because from what I know of the Batgirl show, and we will get into that right after this, but there's no hard date for Batgirl just for the fact that
No,
it is being pushed to
it's just
2023.
been delayed. Well, we'll
Yeah.
get into that now, Clay, because some of the points about why I think Blue Beetle will be theatrical, I want to bring up for Batgirl as well. So we'll just tie those two together. Uh,
Well, before you say that, it was announced that Blue Beetle was going to be theatrical.
I thought it
Like
was a HBO Max
it
original.
was announced as HBO Max original, but then after I think like maybe 2 months, they made it a theatrical release.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I thought that this one was a HBO Max original, like Batgirl still,
No, 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 no.
or was still. So yeah, uh, Batgirl movie release date officially delayed. Hold up. The report stems from updated release schedule sent out by Warner Brothers to the UK press, listing Batgirl under a section named 2023 theatrical releases. That indicates the film will head to UK theaters next year. So, Clay, because of this, there is no way that it will not be a theatrical release in the United States. And there's no
Unless
way they
they
would do
just
that.
really hate us and they
There's
just
no
want to
there's no
give.
way. Just because you're the main customers for HBO Max as well, there's no way that you would see it theatrical, not be able to see it theatrical. Maybe you might get day and date. I doubt it because of everything that's
Oh no, I
happened.
I I don't think that we will get
Yeah.
date, but I was just really joking around. I mean,
Oh
how
yeah.
shitty would that be to be like, hey, everybody else will get to watch it at home while the entire world gets to experience this in theaters?
Oh, you mean like
Um,
Wonder Woman for me, or Suicide Squad, or various other big DC films that I had to. Wonder Woman '84's experience was forever tainted for me from the guy that was coughing up in the corner. And this was like 2 months into COVID when you thought like one bit of COVID killed you. So yeah, it was completely nerve wracking. I was like, this is bullshit. There's only like two people in here. Yeah, but
but
Clay, yeah, so it's going to theatrical 2023. What do we think about this? Obviously, it had to come behind the Flash, regardless.
well,
So
no, not necessarily because
if
again, there's still
Keaton's in
those.
it, unless you're going to
There's
introduce Keaton in this film, which I think is more high, unless you're going, oh yeah. So yeah, you go on your thought here.
as Stubbs is saying, Miss Marvel had a theatrical release in some countries without Disney Plus, so it's possible. So I think, just like the rumors are stating, that Keaton is going to show up at the end of Aquaman. Aquaman is before the Flash. So you we would assume, yes, we would assume that this comes after the Flash because it only makes sense. But can they technically do it before Flash? They probably could. Really depends on some story beats, really. But
Where
again,
Batgirl actually is, she could be in the Batman '89 universe and gets pulled over as well.
and that is where this quote is coming from. Of course, this has been circling Twitter all day today. So I want to read it within its entirety. It says here, the
I got it right here. If you want, well,
well, I'm trying to see
yeah.
the lead up to what this quote really meant. So it says here, uh, didn't film intend to connect to DC's emerging multiverse somehow, while also suggesting the fans will have to see other DC films to understand what is happening. So that is already telling you, hey, you're probably going to have to see the Flash before this movie. In Batgirl, and to grasp how the multiversal madness, I see what you did there, works on the side of the comic book movie landscape. So here's the full quote. Well, we'd sort of give the same answer because we would also ask, oh, you have J.K. Simmons from the Snyderverse, and we got Michael Keaton from the Burtonverse. What's the situation there? And they would say, don't worry about it. We got a plan. They never really explained that aspect to us, but I guess you're going to have to see the other movies to understand what happens. Why the reason is that we ended up in sort of a spaghetti of multiverses in that aspect. So,
It's gonna be a delicious
the
spaghetti. I'm sure of that. You got don't
yes.
leave out the delicious
No,
spaghetti part.
that's irrelevant. The quote that we were seeing was, and let me actually grab it from our GUA chat. It says here, this is the only part of the quote that has been being shared on Twitter. It says, I guess we're going to have to see the other DCU movies to understand what happens. And then it says, in sorts of a spaghetti of a multiverse or spaghetti of
That is
multiverses. So
that is
the
pretty
quote
terrible.
is
So they
being,
cut to what? That's terrible.
yeah, it's the quote is taken out of context for sure.
It
But
doesn't sound
here's
too
the thing,
bad what
though.
they say here. It sounds like kind of honestly, it sounds like they're spoiling a little bit of the Flash, in my opinion, because it sounds like after the Flash, I'll read out exactly after the Flash. They'll end up they'll end up in some sort of spaghetti of multiverses where all these different multiverses
Yeah.
come on into one.
So S Pubs is saying, I was wondering why there was spaghetti in the thumbnail. LOL. Yes. And the problem with that is, of course, misinformation, out of context, whatever. The problem that I see coming forward is this is coming from a current studio that has no idea currently, to me, the way I see how their films and how they have messed with everything in the past, how a normal timeline works. And now they're wanting to play with a multiverse and have it all jumbled up. I would have to assume as a viewer, okay, well, if something is messed up, it eventually needs to get fixed. We heard rumors about this whole crisis event happening sometime in the future, currently only rumors. But I don't know how much I can put faith in them to actually make that happen, you know? And
That's
why
completely
do
valid.
it?
It's not like MCU.
Yeah.
Like
And
I got 100%
why
faith with Kevin that he's going to Kevin Feige that it's going to be like keep going and they're going to do the stuff that they say they're going to
do
do.
now I'm not entirely sure how familiar you are with the comics in like 52 and in Rebirth. And usually the way these publishers do these things is they put out a whole bunch of books, and their idea is the bestsellers will continue while the things that aren't selling will get canceled. And this basically seems like, hey, we're gonna push out Batgirl, we're gonna push out Blue Beetle, we're gonna throw out maybe one or two other new characters that have never made their on-screen appearance, and we're gonna see what sticks. And then if nothing really goes well, then we have the crisis to basically erase everything and we start all over anyway.
I gotta just jump in for a second here because I think that what happens after Blue Beetle will determine what I think in terms of DC because they've gone through two regime changes since 2016, 2017,
Yeah.
and two or three different ideas of where this is going to go. So I feel like Blue Beetle and Batgirl were the last films that were announced that were filmed and done uh, since Zaslav before Zaslav took over.
Yeah.
So I don't have any idea of what is going to go, what is going to happen. I don't know his plan. He hasn't made it known. I don't know if he's just going to bring in a DC film studio head and let that person make the decision. But as far as I'm concerned, everything is up in limbo right now. And when Blue Beetle ends, they don't have currently the plan that they have doesn't go past Blue Beetle because right now the regime that was in place and was crafting a plan is in charge of all these films like the Flash, the Aquaman, Batgirl, Shazam, Black Adam. Like all those are in a group where a certain regime was in charge when they were announced and they got filmed. And we just had our regime change last month or month 2 months ago.
But also, I will say this: the idea of uh Zaslav. You keep saying, "Oh, I don't know Zaslav's plan
I
or
don't
anything
know his
else."
plan.
I don't necessarily think you need to think of Zaslav's plan because Zaslav isn't the one that will eventually be making the plans for the DCEU. He's trying to get somebody else to do that. His plan is to make as much money as possible.
Because he's going to look at the person that can do that for him, like more than a person that loves the characters, in my opinion.
Exactly. So we can't necessarily ask, okay, what is his plan? Because right now, all we're seeing is him kind of sitting in front of a couple resumes, twiddling his thumbs, trying to see who's the best candidate.
I think Clay that if these movies are successful, he'll just keep the current regime in place and keep going forward. But if they aren't financially successful, there's your another way to just restart and bring in somebody else and start completely new. I see. It's very interesting to me. I don't know because you could get things like Peacemaker. But everyone loves Peacemaker. You can't really reset everything and keep Peacemaker there going on its own if you want to have a completely connective universe. So those are drawbacks. Like I saw people complain to about having to watch other things, but that's what MCU is all about. You have to watch the other things. Like if you only watch the movies for Captain Marvel, you wouldn't know what's going on if Miss Marvel shows up in the film.
Yeah.
So that is required of watching. Now I understand that they did several movies, like 18 plus movies, before they asked you to watch TV shows to connect to these movies. So I don't. Well, I guess Agents of Shield they said it connected. I don't really count that. I
They
don't
only
count that.
they
I'm
only
sorry.
connected all the way up until Thor: The Dark World, and that was basically it.
It was if Iron Man should have showed up once. Just even CGI Iron Man, like that would have made so frustrating. Okay, sorry, that's a Marvel show. But yeah, I don't know where they're gonna go play. I have no idea. I wish I knew. I wish someone would say, yeah, we're gonna keep if this is successful, we'll keep going with it, or if not. But I'm just it's just my guess because these all about return on investment. And if you
Well,
show him that it's
and the thing is,
successful,
I know that they will continue to put out DC content.
oh
But as
yes, that's
far
not a
as
question.
this but as far as this DCEU, this connective universe, you're right, we don't know exactly where it's headed. Except for the rumors of this Crisis on Infinite Earths or Final Crisis or whatever you want to call it. Infinite Crisis, whatever. Uh I I just want there to be something in the Flash because I do, like I said, I think the Flash will be the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning, basically. And I need it to show, hey, here's a hint at what is coming soon. Because if we don't get that, then like I don't have faith in this franchise anymore.
If I would be equally as fine having the head of DC Films come out in a big interview saying, "This is our plan going forward. We're doing 7 films and 3 HBO Max TV shows that are connecting and building to one big event." Tell me something like that, I'll be like, "Okay, I'll go right line for your whole ride, and then I'll judge your story at the end of that." Just like I did with Marvel when they planned it here. We're going to get to Avengers. Oh, cool! I'm coming to that story. Oh, that was fantastic. And I'm not saying I want the DC content to be like Marvel content. I want it to be scheduled and planned and run like that. But I don't want the same stories, same type of stories. I like the fact of DC getting so many different, unique. Now we get that from Marvel too. I don't want to throw that lazy trope complaint out as well. I've enjoyed all of Phase 4, but I just think I would like a structured plan of what is going on, and that's why I'd like to know there's one person at the top that makes the decision,
Well,
regardless.
which is why I'm really curious as of what exactly is going to be coming up in San Diego Comic Con, because currently, I believe currently, uh, WB has those two stand-ins from
And Gotham
Amazon
Knights
that came in to work as the studio heads of DC content over at WB. Are they allowed to make any big plans, or are they just covering everything that is currently slated? Uh, because if that's the case, they didn't really need to hire them
there has been no decisions made on anything filming but after Blue Beetle right now.
currently. No,
Also, people don't even come at me with Superman and Lois because that is the CW's decision first to renew that, not DC's. So they were the ones that said we're going to renew that show. So that was not the plan of whoever's up in the higher ups in DC. So just calm your nerves before you come at me with the Superman Lois was renewed. That's something that happened. No, that was not their control. So no, nothing new has been announced. Anything we've heard rumblings on things, but besides Joker 2, and that is a DC Black label that is essentially allowed to do what it wants, stand on its own. He basically Todd Phillips got exactly what he pitched to Walter Hamada, who shot him down
yeah, yeah,
after being. Well, Zaslav went, "You spent what and made what? Cha-ching, 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 come here, my son." And brought him in, and it was like, "Yeah, we'll have you do Joker 2." So that's the only thing that's been announced, Clay, and which is nothing with the DCU has been announced since we got the merger.
yeah, exactly. Uh,
So
but like I said, it's just there needs to be something that comes out either at the end of San Diego Comic Con or in the months coming up to the Flash. I think that it doesn't need to happen necessarily before Aquaman, but it definitely needs to happen before the Flash.
I think it needs to happen before Shazam's over. I think because Black Adam and Shazam, you're going to want to know, like, is this going to keep going? Like, are we going to get more films with these two? Like, are they going to square off? Because that's what I assume we're going
Well,
with
I
that.
assume that they see if they announce just the Black Adam Shazam fight movie, whatever, the verses, that is just pushing those two movies. And that is fine. But as far as like an actual plan of things, I think it needs to happen before the Flash.
But they exist in the DCU. You like Freddie got those clippings from Man of Steel happening and the
Yeah.
BVS Batman Bat.
I understand that, but currently they, like you said, those are the only two movies that are coming out this year. And as of right now, because WB likes to do this a lot, oh, well, it's our next movie. That's our most important thing. It's not the greater DCEU. It's not the film franchise. It's these two movies because they're the next up on the slate.
And this
And
could be
so
their
just
same thinking. You're right. This could be their same thinking because we don't know because we don't have anybody explaining what is going on right now.
yeah,
It's
for sure.
it's super tough. Like you're like, just give us a plan. Just give us something. Let us know what is going on. Like, should I invest my time with Blue Beetle and Batgirl? Am I going like if I want more, will I get more?
Well, you know what? How about this? How about this? This is on the spot, and we didn't plan for this. I will go ahead and write some down. Uh, what is your name 3 predictions at DC's panel for San Diego Comic Con?
Ooh. Uh a Hawkman HBO Max original.
Okay.
A Shazam versus Black Adam or Shazam 3 being announced.
Okay.
And I'm saying it. I'm putting it into existence. I'm willing it into
Not gonna
existence.
happen.
I'm willing it into existence, Clay. This is not like the punching Despero in DCCW. This is real. This is what the people want. You'll give the people what they want, and
I'm already writing it down.
Henry Cavill will show up at the panel.
All right. So my predictions.
And rock bottom the rock, and everyone will be like, "Oh!" and JR's music will play, and oh good God,
I think that Henry would pull something if he tried to do a rock bottom on the rock. I will go ahead and double down on the Shazam versus Black Adam for my number one. My number two, I'm going to assume I don't believe he's showing up, but that doesn't. Oh, well, hold on. Do we know if he's going to be there for Marvel? Because if he's there for Marvel, he might show up for DC. I'm going to go ahead and assume a James Gunn project announcement.
ooh, I like that idea.
And then as my number three, I'm gonna. This is gonna be the worst. I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't know why I'm gonna say this. Um, I'm gonna say no, because their next movie would be at that point it would be Black Adam. There's no reason why any other trailer would come out. Hold on, I was gonna say another Flash trailer, but no. I'm gonna say what's my third one? What do I want my third one to be?
Oh no.
Shazam Black Adam gun announcement. I'm gonna say oh, you know what? We have heard radio silence on anything JJ Abrams ever
That's
since
true.
ever since he got, called out for stealing $250 million and
For
doing nothing
sitting
with it.
back and be like, "Yeah, I'm doing something."
Uh I'm gonna go ahead and throw out there anything JJ Abrams was attached to. So it's a wide net. I understand that. But whether that be JJ Abrams announced something himself or anything with the Justice League Dark or any of their members. So that's what my third is going to be. Any JJ Abrams project, whether he be attached to it or not.
Hold the fort for a second, my friend.
Why?
My computer, Google Chrome is crashing. Oh wait,
Oh,
no, we're good. We're good. It's just a little smile. I was like, "What?" Apparently, I was trying to. Same thing happened again, so I'll just close it. Oh well, I was trying to upload Smallville picture.
oh my gosh, Heinz, you trying to destroy our stream over here.
Yep, one small step at a time.
But let's go ahead and jump into our final topic since you've already hinted at it. Of course, uh you know what? They couldn't call their podcast this, but we're going to call this section of the podcast Small Talk. We're going to talk
Nice.
about Smallville. Of course, we both listened to the podcast Talkville with Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling. Talked about the pilot. And the reason why we're doing this is because I need purpose in my life. Um,
Tiny bit extreme.
um, there is nothing really worth talking about in DC, so I needed something worth talking about. And Smallville is quite possibly the greatest superhero show known to man. So I want to talk about it. And so they are giving, when I say they, Michael Rosenbaum and Tom Welling, they're giving the behind the scenes of the actual show, the actor, behind the camera, all of this insight, while we are going to be talking about our thoughts, the basically the fans process of it all. Uh and we may hint at and talk about some of the things that they spoke about. But overall, Heinz, what did you like about the pilot of Smallville? Well, I will say this. When did you watch the pilot of Smallville the very first time?
Ooh, that was probably, if not when it aired, like a rerun that week. I It's all we had, guys. This is all we had. This is all that was on TV. There was even any Dark Knight at the time. Like there wasn't a Batman
Nope.
Begins. This was post Batman and Robin world, and it was the
This
dark
was
times.
this was of course 5 years before Superman Returns. This was
This
this
was going
was
on at the same time that Justice
Spider-Man.
League animated universe was going on.
Yeah, but this is Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man time
Yep.
because that infamous commercial
It
trailer.
was a month after September 11th.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that's one of the things that their editor Ryan
Yeah.
over on Talkville, he brought up something that actually I remember reading up on it more so after the final season had uh, finished, and some old articles had reemerged about the pilot and how far they had gone, the whole 10 years or whatever, and how important, quote unquote, the world kind of saw Smallville in light of what happened in 9/11. And I think it's kind of crazy how Tom Welling was just like, he was so in shock that like he just like, I have nothing else to do but go to work. Like he
Well, he was
couldn't think
at
of anything
work
else.
when it happened.
Yeah.
Like I had to go back to school when it happened, Clay.
I was
Like
in
because I
school.
I I came home. I go home for dinner and come back, and we
Yeah.
just came home for dinner, and my mom was crying watching it on TV.
It
I
was
was
it
like,
was
"Where's my chicken
weird.
nugget?"
I still remember that day. Like all of us talking and everything else. But as far as this show goes, I watched it for the very first time the day that it aired. Um my dad had called us, and because we visited my dad on this during the summer months, up until I was old enough and decided to live with him later on. But during that year, I was still living with my mom and my grandparents. He had called me and said, "Hey, the show's about to start. Go watch it, and we'll talk about it later." So I watched it the day it debuted. Um, and man, watching this episode brought back so many memories. For one, the needle drops that are on this show. So I don't know if you remember this, but back in the day on WB and in the early CW Smallville era, they would always advertise the songs that were on the show
Oh my God, yes.
immediately after the episode. They're like, "Oh, you can go buy this CD at your local Target or your local Walmart or
Yeah.
whatever."
The first thought
Uh,
I had, Clay, was we don't even have a Target here. Yeah, like we just got Walmart a couple years ago.
but I I love the needle drops in here. It made me feel very very nostalgic. Uh, but of course, this episode, uh, shit, was it just titled Pilot? What was the actual
Yes,
title
it
of
was
it?
just titled Pilot.
Yeah. So there's a lot to cover here. We're not going to spend an hour or so. We're just going to give some thoughts about it, some of our favorite moments, some things we didn't like or whatever. But one thing particular that started the episode, Michael Rosenbaum was very, very impressed at the fact that the
Still
meteor
holds up,
shower
Clay. Still holds
it
up,
still
Clay.
holds
Still
up.
holds up.
Uh, Heinz, and how do you feel about that comment?
It holds up as what, a PlayStation 1 game? Like, yeah, it holds up as like when you're watching the asteroids coming. No, that like the what I said the Clay held up was the explosion parts of when it was landing. Like that kind of that didn't
Well,
take me out of it. Whereas when I saw the even Lionel Luthor at the end when he was in the field that was all mad at that looked terribly CGI. You
well,
couldn't get a field and map down the field. Like you had to make it CGI. It was bad. It looked like the world's worst tennis court.
well, for me, I enjoyed the basically the light show in the sky. That it's just like these large orange yellow lights flying through the sky. That I can say, okay, that's a pretty good visual of a meteor shower. That's fine, and maybe that's what he's talking about. But when this episode opens, you just see those gray and green rocks floating in space, horrible, absolutely
Yeah.
horrible.
And then
It
Lana looks
is
over like
bad.
Lana looks over like, "Hi, mommy, daddy," squished by the
Oh my
meteor right
god.
in front of her face,
Okay, so
and I
that is
don't
my
think that
first
goes
qualm.
back much.
They do okay, Heinz. If you see a freaking 20-yard freaking meteor, freaking 10-yard meteor, whatever, however long this thing or large this thing is,
I'm moving, Clay.
hurling
That's the
towards you,
answer. I'm
are you
moving.
moving at all?
I'm moving. I'm not staring up, being like, "Oh my
The
god."
way, the way. Okay,
They
so,
looked up and they were squished.
so no. The best part about this, because the meteors are still represented by giant balls of light. This giant ball of light goes, and then the camera changes from like the view of like Lana, and you see up until this light touches the actual ground. Like you could still see Lana's parents in the background, not moving one frame at all when this light is completely covering them, and then all of a sudden, giant explosion.
Well, they're
It's bad.
basically skeletons now. They're like just stand up skeleton for a second, then they'll disintegrate to the rest.
It's horrible Photoshop or video shop or
Well, we
whatever you
gotta
want to
think
call
about it.
it.
We gotta put that in context of the times too. Like it was 2001, so
2001,
and they
yes, and
spent like we got to commend them because they didn't spend. They've never spent as much as they did on this pilot up to that date. I'm sure they have since then. They brought in David Nutter, who is like the pilot whisperer. So they did a lot of things to push this show. But now looking back at it, it's quite funny to think that that was like ground. That was pretty cool,
groundbreaking.
pretty cool VFX for a TV show back then, a pilot
Well, no,
especially.
like and Tom Welling had even said there was a time where okay, the some of the things that they did in the first season were super freaking expensive, whereas later on in like season 10 they did the exact same thing and it was basically cost nothing.
Yeah.
So you see the advancement of technology throughout this entire show. And one thing that I did see on Twitter, I think this morning or last night, that I cannot wait to see throughout the episodes that we will watch. Um, they are very inconsistent with Clark's powers. And when I say that, I mean the inconsistency of how strong or how powerful each individual power is. So, like his speed, I feel like that's one of the very first powers that you see him
I love
use.
that scene. I love that scene.
Going through
That's
the cornfield or whatever.
but the look on his face too, he plays it so well. Like Pete and Chloe are there, like, oh, shout out Chloe. You probably else Max probably watching this in jail. Uh, the Smallville show I'm talking about, not this podcast. I just that will be happening a lot whenever we get Chloe centric stuff. There will be jokes that is part of the game.
But we see him, the one tiny detail that I absolutely love that nobody really notices, if you're actually paying attention, he jumps on the bus.
Yeah,
He bounces and they're like, "What the heck is that?" But he one thing that I'm absolutely bothered by to this day, I was bothered by it then when I watched it for the first time, and I'm bothered by it still, is the inconsistency of how kryptonite is used in this show.
I think it's pretty consistent in that it immobilizes him, like especially going
No.
further in like
Oh,
season 6 and that when we had that Justice League episode.
so here's the
How do you
problem
get
though,
rid of
Heinz.
Superman? Lock him in a room.
Here's the problem, Heinz. Okay. So as a fan of this character prior to Smallville, I know that if Superman were to get anywhere near kryptonite within 10 to 15 feet of kryptonite, it starts to affect him. It shows that the moment he walks near Lana for the very first time, he just falls.
That was a good scene as well because they were betting on that, and you get to see how kryptonite affects him. I don't think that's he was showing that he was sick around Lana the
Yes,
entire time.
but the inconsistency part of it is the fact that he is very like queasy, he can hardly breathe, and all of this stuff. But at the end of the episode, when that small piece of kryptonite falls maybe 6 feet away from him, maybe even less. No, he falls down. The necklace falls off of him. He is right above it, and he just runs off.
No. He jumps
Yes, he
off,
does.
grabs his clothes, and turns around and has a conversation with Lex, giving him enough time to. And you got to think about this now. Maybe he's still feeling a little bit like he did when he was sat down earlier in the episode in school, but comparative to having it wrapped around your neck for hours, you probably feel fantastic in comparison to that. And then in another couple seconds, it's like we said, it's 2001. I do agree with you that
It's
sometimes
inconsistent.
it's not anywhere near as inconsistent as Superman and Lois is with Superman's kryptonite, because in the very first
Yes.
episode he's stabbed through the chest and falls down to the ground, and then he gets up and takes it off. He's like, "Oh, I'm Superman," and you're like, "Okay, so kryptonite isn't really like the one true weakness of him in this show, right?" And I love Superman and Lois, but it seems like they do play fast and hard with it. I don't like you said though, where you establish, because I love that, where you establish that it makes him sick when he goes around, and you got that little thing there that's killing Clark even being able to go up to Lana because she's wearing this meteor that came from where her parents were killed. So she's not going to take it off. So you're stuck in a
Yeah.
rock and a hard place. So that's a really good little storytelling device you have there. I like that, but you are right in terms of like they do be really flimsy with it, especially going forward. Make a terrible excuse. I can't remember. I'll be excited when we get there of why it goes away for a while and they get closer. So I'm really interested to talk more about this because it's been a while since I've seen the show, but I do think you're right now thinking about it even more about how loose and fast they play with how Kryptonite fixed him. I think it evens out more when you get into further seasons, like when we get to
Well,
season
because
5,
then
season 6.
you're introduced into you're introduced to red kryptonite, you're introduced to blue kryptonite, you're introduced to all like you dive you
You
dive
get
deeper
every one of
into
them. You get
more
every one
of
of
the
them.
Superman mythos. Exactly. So we will see a lot of that coming in. I think even as soon as season 2. I think is
Maybe
when
even
we are
season 1.
introduced.
I think class ring in season 1 or something happens in season 1. Then he gets it again in
You're
season
right. You're
2, and
right.
he
You're right.
already knows what happens. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
think
are
it's
right. You are right.
sometime in this season. I can't remember how, but it's been
Yeah,
a while. I'm excited to check this whole
but
season out. Class.
I will say this. I do agree with majority of the listeners that actually called into the Talkville podcast. One of people's favorite scenes is the scene in which Lex Luthor crashes into
That's a great scene.
Clark
That's a
on the
great scene.
bridge. Um, I love how it was shot. The reaction to Lex Luthor. You get to actually see the stunt double just fall right into the water with the vehicle. I think that works out very, very well. Uh, and even the underwater scenes. For me, I think I would have been right in the same boat as Rosenbaum with being freaked out, especially if you've never had experience in that kind of thing before. Having to stay underwater um, and act unconscious while underwater. It's very nerve wracking, probably. But
I
I love that scene.
wouldn't find the underwater part so bad. I grew up diving for scallops, where you have to stay underwater for a minute, minute and a half without any gear or anything. So,
Okay.
uh, but the whole pretending to act unconscious, I don't know if I could even do that underwater. I think that'd be too many difficult things going on at one time. So just hearing Rosenbaum talk about like I thought they were going to fire me and everything, but they did speak very highly of David Nutter, who is the pilot whisperer. Like I said, I love this scene, Clay, and I love a lot of Rosenbaum's Lex here, but he gets a little intense. At one point, if I was Clark, I'd be like, dude, like I met you 12 hours ago. Our
They talked
friendship's
about
gonna
that
be the
scene
stuff
when
of
they,
legends. Yeah, that
yeah,
was.
when they are sword fight when they
And then
do
when we rewatch it back, I'm like,
the fencing
yeah, that
scene.
is
Yeah.
super creepy. Also creepy on the list, how much of a peeping Tom Clark is over at Lana,
Yes,
watching Lana and Whitney
I
made
have
out, and
always
then
thought
watching
back at
Lana
this.
having a big daydream at the end, watching Lana and be like, thanks for the kiss, Lana. Dude, like you have like 8 superpowers. Calm down a little bit. Like, stop being a weirdo. Like it was whispered it,
When
like, thank you,
I
Lana.
think it was maybe the third or fourth time I rewatched this whole series back like my senior year of uh of high school. And I was like, this is hella awkward because you see it the first time with right after that scene where he saves Lex Luthor, because you see
I
Whitney
love that Lex getting the
and
truck too.
yeah, and I also love the scene where, because it does show where Clark is inside of his, his mindset of how he feels about him being not normal, throwing his hand into the wood chipper.
That was a great
Always love
scene.
that scene.
That was a great scene back and forth with his father.
But an, a cringy scene is learning about his origins and how uh Jonathan Kent just like looks up into the sky.
Yeah, there was some cringe moments there.
Yeah,
Like, wait, you're saying I'm from outer space? Saying I'm not from this planet?
yeah, and he just stares off into space. Yeah, but I think there's a total like 2 or 3 times where Clark is peeping on Lana through the telescope, and they actually acknowledge it later on in other seasons.
She says,
Um,
like, that's pointed right at my house, and Clark goes giggity.
I don't think that's what he
I
says,
know, I'm just Family
but
Guy.
it is fairly close to exactly that scene. But then even like in the final seasons, they go back to the telescope too. Um, but yeah, I love this episode. It introduces a lot of the characters that we will follow for the rest of this season. They Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum reminded us that the second episode is an episode that I remember very fondly because it
I
was
do
very
too.
creepy. Um, the one with the bugs,
Yeah.
which reminds me of the whole idea of Freak of the Week. I was actually trying to look it up. They were not allowed to say Freak of the Week on set. I think that's kind of odd.
Well,
How do you
they
feel
they
about
also
that?
had a no flights, no tights, no, like, they had a rule on set as well, but he won't fly.
Yeah.
So, like, or well, he won't be in the suit, kind of. So, it, it's a weird rule to have, to be honest with you, Clay.
Yeah, I'm seeing here. I was trying to look for like the origins of the Freak of the Week phrasing, and like seeing how people like were turned away from that ideal of a show. But that's exactly what it was. You turned it into that by the second episode, you know? And I will say this, they I feel, and this is my opinion, everybody else has their own opinions. I really do feel like Smallville perfected the Freak of the Week
I
because
gotta say,
they were able to do it with actual story
in
instead of
mul-
just
in multiple times,
yeah,
because not only did they have Freak Week with the meteors that lasted a while. When Clark opened up the Phantom Zone, we had the season where he's going after all the Phantom Zone people that have got out, other Freaks of the Week, but from the Phantom Zone, so switching it up. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure Batista is in one of these episodes of this show.
yes.
So, and Edge, maybe no, that's in the Flash. Uh, yeah, the villain this week was very forgettable. He was basically the person that the football crowd
He was the
tied up.
scarecrow of back in, because I think this because I can't remember what year it was in the very beginning, but then it said 10 years ago.
So 91.
Or 10 or yeah. I think it was no. So
I'd say it
because
was
he is
1990.
technically he is 14. That's another thing. Tom Welling, the way he looks in that pilot, I did not look that way at the age of 14. No way in hell that kid is 14 at that time. But he's portraying a 14-year-old. I don't know how they got away with that, but they got away with it, you know?
Yeah, it kind of worked for me. I, like I said, the villain was really forgettable for me, but like you pointed out, we're introduced to so many of the characters that will come to know and like follow. It makes up for having a very weak first villain.
Do you know what I was reminded of when I was watching this pilot though? Out of our high school gang, Lana, Whitney, Chloe, Pete, and Clark, two of them have gone to prison in real life.
Oh no, who's the other one?
The character who plays Pete Ross,
Oh,
he was put into prison for conspiracy to sell hardcore drugs. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. You can look it up right now. I'm not entirely sure how well he like because
Oh, a
he
year in prison.
he ended up going on to shows like Blue Mountain State and other
Oh,
stuff.
okay, yeah. Yeah.
Uh, but I'm curious to see if he will come in as a guest on the show because I'm not
Ooh.
entirely sure how well they're all still connected. Because as far as like the Smallville
I know
nights,
I
you
know
don't really see
the
him
I know
in the crowd.
the Erica Durant,
Hmm.
Kristen Couric. I feel like that's about Sam Witwer was on a
Hmm.
panel. I think that's about it, and maybe one of the Ash people. I can't remember their names now. The one that plays Jimmy.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think those guys were on panels. Yeah, like so Clark, they essentially I thought it was so tiring that they made Clark put Clark up on the Raven, and the way the guys defeat it is so like meh. There's one action scene in this entirety, really one fight scene, sorry, and the other scene is him getting run off a bridge,
Yeah.
which I loved. I thought that was probably the best scene of that or him chasing the bus were my favorite scenes of the episode.
I will say the uh it's really funny. I don't know how this really tells like of my character, but on Talkville, you know, I think it was Tom Welling was like, "Oh yeah, I really like the scene where like I announce who I am." You know, I'm Clark Kent and you're in Smallville. That's one of my favorite scenes, as well as the Lex Luthor hitting Clark. That's one of my favorite scenes as well in
I
this
also got to give a
episode.
shout out to Lionel Luthor because I just love John Glover as Lionel Luthor, and
John
I
Glover
can't wait to
is
see him
great.
just chew up this role.
Oh
Like you
yeah,
could have like
there are so many scenes in the entirety of Smallville that just shows that he is a seasoned actor, and it is great.
they
I
all are
love all of his
here.
scenes.
Okay, Clay, I think that kind of caps it for us. Any ending thoughts on the pilot before we call
Uh
this episode to an end too?
nope, just the fact that when I saw this the first time and even now, like of course there has been I feel like greater quality shows. But this will always hold a great big spot in my heart, and I feel like this will probably always hold the number one spot for me. It's gonna take a lot to push that aside, but it just reminded me of when I first watched it, and I was just like, "Yeah, this is a great show."
Well, the series pilot broke WB's record for viewers, so they it like I said, it was the only thing we had live action. It was fantastic. I can't wait to talk about this entire show with you, Clay. So, like I said, the pilot there is some weakness to the pilot in terms of villain and action pieces, but this show really finds its footing, and it's going to be so fun to talk about it.
Yeah, and we will be covering this show for its entirety. We will try to keep it up with Talkville because we do want to give insight on what they were saying and how we reacted to some of that stuff. Um, as far as like if they have an episode that is on pause or on hiatus or whatever, I'm not entirely sure how we will figure that out. But I am willing to watch the entire show. So
Same. So you'll get the Smallville review from us guys. It'll take a couple years, but we'll get through it.
yeah. All right. Well, of course, you can always find me at fanboyclay on Twitter. Go into the bio and you can find the link tree to all of the shows that I host, that including DC Alliance, Batman News Weekly, Ranger Alliance, and Star Wars Alliance.
You can find me on Twitter at Travis_156. You can drop me a line. We can chat about DC anytime. I also host superhero discussions on the podcast, on the GUA Podcast Network. We are finishing up Spectacular Spider-Man, doing a episode covering 2 episodes, then doing an episode covering the final 3, leading right into Harley Quinn. Plus, we also have something recorded in the can, just dying to be released, but can't quite be released yet. legalities and technicalities and all the fun jazz, but it'll come out when it's allowed. So you be ready for that, listeners. A special episode of Superhero Discussions is coming as well.
Do I know what it is?
Yes, you do.
Okay, yeah. I thought so.
Yeah. You started to peek up at the end. You're like, yeah. And I was going to release that on Patreon, and it was like,
You
whoa,
can.
whoa. No. It was like, whoa. So, and I understand. It makes sense. Got a couple weeks.
All right.
Okay. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll be back next week with some more DC goodness. Hopefully, well, we'll be back from SDCC, so we'll have some DC goodness. Hopefully, some trailers.
All right. See you later.
See ya.